Now, yes, okay. I may start. I'll try to say something. Today, 3 days before, we had meeting in this seminar that you see this title of the seminar on 13th April. And I was speaking then in this organized by us in this seminar. Yeah, this title, Information Against Evil, the Ukrainian War Context, Information, and particularly some attention given to artificial intelligence and how information may struggle against evil. The Ukrainian War Context. Well, we had very nice seminar, but I want to turn some attention to one point that I forgot to explain. And the result was that at the end of this seminar, some questions came from my colleagues who asked or argued that I am a very naive person to imagine that Russian soldiers should be educated or how I were speaking there to try to learn them some subjects, scientific Bibles, and not simple Bibles, but Greek Bible, Hebrew Bibles, and French fairy tales, and some math books and physics books. And it all turned out, it sounded very naive. Because in Ukraine, these soldiers are worrying against Ukrainian soldiers, Ukrainian army, and to speak in this horrible war situation about such things, to try to force the soldiers to read books like these, results out something very naive. But I had in my plan to mention one thing, and this thing was particularly captured in this paragraph. And now that paragraph I put there. I separated this paragraph from other text, and in this sentence, one sentence actually, in this sentence was encrypted the idea that this idea was not to be such naive persons to speak about educating fighting soldiers in very crude war situations where each other are shooting, bombing, and what else military actions performing. And now I want to speak about, lecturing physics, lecturing mathematics, and lecturing Bible language Greek Hebrew texts, and this all sounded very, very strange. Some might suggest that I'm complete idiot, but my idea was idea was here in this sentence. Here I write my suggestion, and it's not about the war situation, but that after the war. Imagine someday the war should end, and what to do after the war. What to do with soldiers who were fighting in trenches, and a particular question about Russian soldiers. Ukrainian soldiers go home and build their country after war and return to their families, and they return to their normal life. But we should imagine that for Russians, this situation after the war should be very terrible. What these soldiers who now are fighting in these trenches and shooting and whatever else doing their military actions, what they are going to do afterwards, after the war. They may be hope, many, that they would be able to come home to their families, their wives, their children, and whatever else, to their homes in Russia or whatever else country they would like to travel. What they are to do? What are their perspectives after the war? Many, maybe most of them should turn into war. How they are, of course, they are criminals, but they capture people. How they are called, these which are captured, and now they should live in some filtration camps and these as prisoners. Yes, war prisoners. That is a correct word, but war prisoners. They should, most of them should turn into war prisoners, live in camps. But we don't know actually how that should be organized. This is question of Ukraine government. This is question of NATO countries, and maybe the United States should play some role. What to do with these soldiers? But they should, most of them, they should turn into war prisoners. They should live in camps, specially organized. And what they should do there? Of course, one thing we may expect that there should come some persons and should work with them and deliver them lectures about Ukraine war, because they all time lived under Russia propaganda. We must imagine the reality in which the conditions which they live in nowadays in these, sitting in these trenches in Ukraine and struggling with Ukrainians. They are under Russia propaganda. They are under propaganda, and they understand these things around them in the light of this propaganda. Maybe many of them understand, and they don't believe in this propaganda. Yeah, we may assume that many of these soldiers are not so stupid. They or there might be situations that partly there's some distribution. We might some Gauss care we should draw, and some distribution, how they are under this propaganda. There should be some percentage who are completely under this propaganda. There should be some part of graph on one end who are completely outside this propaganda. They understand that they are underlying and all this nonsense Russia. But there should be very, very bright this between these people who don't something they believe, something not. They are so in some undiscerned situations. They some things they understand, some things they don't understand, and so afterwards they should be all be under this political pressure to hear this truth, to wash out this Russia propaganda from their brains, from their heads. And they should come. This is obligatory. Should they come? We don't think that they could run away from this. They should all be all go through this brainwashing campaign after the wars. And now, but now let imagine what is this idea? My idea after this to force these soldiers to learn to hear, learn from books of physics, from mathematics and biblical. But my idea was not to simply very simple books, but now we may return from these books which was suggested by me. Look, this math and physics book was very complicated and very on very high level of scientific level. People which are trained to these books are professors of universities. They are to very high level of in these scientists. These who have captured, who have conquered this level on scientific thinking and these scientific methods in these books. These are on very high scientific level. And the same about Bible. On the this black little book, this is Bible. Of course, the Bible these soldiers may read. Maybe they even have their own Russian Bibles from home taken in these war conditions. But to read in Hebrew, to read in Greek, of course they can't. Of course they can't. And and idea is to force them to learn, to force them to study very heavy scientific subjects. And this my idea. And now, well, with one eye you may look on this book, and on other eye to look into this my sentence. My idea is to force them to them to study this book by force as type of punishment for crimes. And now this idea is this, I think, it's not so simple. So some people might think that I'm a complete idiot, that I'm trying to speak such things. But imagine this is not so quite a simple thing. If these people who are how to, with one name, they are bandits. How they, I don't know how to, other word for in English. They are quite on very, very, very level of intellectual as members of society, they don't fit into society. In one, this Nevzorov called them, I don't remember that word which he used for them. They are not humans, they are well, I don't remember, but very bad word he used to characterize these which are now fighting in army of Russia. He was characterizing not as humans but are insects, and the very, the very yeah. So, what if we try to characterize which are their intellectual level of these persons who are now fighting in this Russian army, and now we want to, and people would laugh and say, now you want to let them study quantum mechanics and read Bibles in Syriac and in Greek, in Hebrew and what else languages. And imagine to come to these languages, it is very, very hard work to be done. I'm many years worked in university, and I have learned students to get some knowledge in this Hebrew, Greek, and Latin in this. It requires very hard work, and now, of course, but yeah, this is interesting. It is very we have used to hear that these prisoners, or war prisoners, or maybe other sort prisoners, they are forced for physical work, very heavy physical work. But what does what it could mean them forced for very hard, not physical, but this scientific work, some educational work. And my idea was to, no, I am not arguing that my idea is very clever. I would like to turn attention that we humans have may invent different ways. If we want the world to become better than before, we must invent something new. And look, if we were used to things that people may be forced to physical work because they did some crimes, they were stealing, and some were murderers, and other were otherwise mockerings. I don't know to go to these old crimes to name, but yeah, we are used to things that they may be forced for physical work. But why only physical? Why maybe this imagine these people who have never studied these hard things. Imagine they are forced to learn ancient Greek. I know myself which pains it took for me to learn ancient Greek, which pains me to learn Hebrew, which pains took me to study Syriac. And these things which pains me took to study some mathematical subjects, and in physics the same. And after many years of studying these very hard things, I perceive that I am so very little educational level. If I want to compare me with other with scientists around me, which works I am studying, and see. And now, if we want to push these war criminals to learn this, is it this idea so stupid? Well, maybe it is stupid, but let us try to discuss this idea. My idea is we could discuss simply. We could discuss. I would like to hear opposite arguments against my this. What I am now trying to push in the in this my idea. Well, so my suggestion is we could talk and discuss and look into it, but see. This all was when I in the seminar, when I was speaking about this my field experiments. Now what I'm speaking I had in my mind. But I forgot to explain this to other people. And when I started to talk about this field experiment or thought experiment, people even didn't discern this difference between these two approaches, field experiment and thought experiment. Thought experiment is one thing, but if I started to speak about field experiment, it was completely nonsense to go in the Russian trenches, and the Ukrainians are thinking how to bombs to drop on their heads. But I want to come with books of physics and try to them with idea, try to them educate. Yeah, it all, but we must start from the point which I now try to put this accent, the main accent about, and then we may look on this. Yeah, but because all this was spoken in the context of that how information should be then in the warrior against the evil. And evil was, in our case, evil, this is Russia war in Ukraine and how to force them. Well, but I think that I should now end and leave all for we must remember who wants to this must look into this seminar what was spoken there, and I want to find people who would be like to discuss this my idea, and so thank you for those who were listening, and I am now ending. Now I am ending. I only must find where is this. Yes. Yeah, goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.